Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our first third Thursday of 2021. My name is Ann Coman, and I am on the board of Altadena Heritage. Altadena Heritage is a community nonprofit. We advocate for and raise awareness of our cultural, architectural, historical, and natural heritage. Visit our website, altadenaheritage.org, where you can find lots of information about Altadena and about our group. We have a great tree page on that website, and you can read our acclaimed newsletters as well. You can also renew your membership or become a member. We are thrilled tonight to have Steve Hoffendahl with us tonight, and he's going to present on subtropical and unusual fruits and his experience growing them. Steve is an actor. He has done film and TV, but his true love, from what I get talking to him, is the theater. In fact, he is starring in a play tomorrow at the Smartphone Theater with his wife, Lily. Did I say starting or starring? Starring in a play. The play will be live online starting at 5 p.m. It's called Home Fires 2, and it's written by Joe Keys. To register to see the play, go to smartphonetheater.com. And I've put the information over in the chat box, so I'll keep it up there. And at the end of the program, if you like, you can just click at the lower right of the chat box, and that'll download it to your computer. So you won't have to write down anything that goes into the chat box. And we'll be putting resources in the chat box later. Steve has had another career, and that one is in horticulture. He is a master gardener. He was nursery manager at Tree People for 11 years. During that time, he also ran a program that distributed fruit trees to low-income families. Over the course of his time at Tree People, over 50,000 trees were distributed to those families. Just a few things before we hand it over to Steve. Please mute your microphones. If you have questions, please type them into the chat box, and we'll get to them after Steve finishes his presentation. Okay, so Steve, welcome. I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ann. Good to see everybody. I see some faces and names I recognize. Good to see you. Thanks for attending. The play tomorrow at 5 is streaming live, but then in a week or so, it's going to stream again the following Friday live. And then after that, they'll post it. It's free, but if you want to watch it live, you got to register. But anyway, okay, so let's get to it. So the idea of this, Ann, should I set up the share screen with the PowerPoint now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so this is a talk I gave a couple months ago. I put together for my friend Laura Hall, who runs, she coordinates presentations for the Hollywood Orchard. And the idea was we would not really get into the weeds, so to speak, with deciduous or citrus, more common fruit. And what it is I moved to Altadena in the fall of '99, and there was a beautiful old white sapote tree on my property, and I didn't even know what it was. I just knew vegetable gardening at that time. And in discovering what the white sapote was, and I'll talk about that during the PowerPoint, I just discovered this world of all these different fruits that we can grow here. The great regular stuff, Santa Rosa plum and all the citrus we can do better than anybody in the world, really, here in the San Gabriel slope. And I joined the California Rare Fruit Growers, which is, if you're interested in this, you have to join the California Rare Fruit Growers because it's a fantastic organization. It's mostly amateurs. They meet different places. The chapter closest to us is Foothill at the Arboretum, the first Saturday every other month, I think in February, like those the even months. But there's different chapters everywhere. And that resource is listed. Anne has a list of the resources. So we'll go through this. The idea. So I have this, be careful what you wish for. We were looking for like a fixer-upper in Altadena, and we got it in 99 when the market was really low. And it has like almost 3/4 of an acre, and there was nothing on it. There's a white sapote. There were a few beautiful old fruit trees. They still have the mission fig and some of the old citrus. And I just went nuts and got a hobby, went crazy, and I just started planting tons of stuff. So without further ado, I'll kind of work through this as expediently as I can. And then, so take notes, or if you see something, I guess you won't stop me during the presentation there's like 20 slides. And then at the end, we can go back and talk about any of them that you have questions for. And Anne's going to handle that with the chat, I guess. Okay, so here we go. Let's start. Wait. All right, there we go. All right, so what do I got here? I have mango and pears with our new kitty cat. Who's only 2 years old. She's sleeping amidst the pears. Pears are tricky. I include that because they're a little bit more unusual than apples, but they're a little tricky to grow here because of codling moth. Codling moth loves apples and pears and quince, and it seems like they get pears and quince worse than they get apples, and it's hard to deal with them, especially organically. It's very hard. And mangoes, of course, are just a little bit more sensitive than avocados, really. And we most of the places in Altadena that I know of are pretty fast draining. So there's a problem. You don't want the water to sit. Mangoes could, like avocados, are subject to root rot. So you don't want that. But I think this is a Manila mango. I have 2 mangoes. They don't get super huge like they do in the tropics. Beyond the mango, where my cursor is the white sapote tree. Okay. Key apple. This is a great fruit. It's called key apple. I go by the common names, which are not accurate. Common names are just common names. It's not an apple at all. It's a weird fruit from Africa, actually. I don't know if you can see in the photo on the right, but the huge, gnarly thorns like this long, and they plant it as a natural fence in southern Africa, and apparently elephants and rhinos won't go through it because of those thorns. The fruit is over here on the left. It's like a very sour, very dense apricot. Fantastic to cook with. Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. This happened before. I gotta try to get myself back now. Yeah, it's fantastic to cook with. It's so dense. It's really good. It's chewy, but it's sweet, but very sour though. But very unusual. You need a male and a female, unlike most fruit trees where there's sometimes pollination issues. But there's a couple fruit trees that you need a plant, a male and a female, which is to say the male in this species only produces male flowers and the female only produces female flowers. And there's a couple things like that, kiwis and pistachio, I think something, che, which I have here. And some of them like pistachio and kiwis, there's many varieties within that, different varieties of males, but you need that to get the correct pollination. And often what that means is you keep the male smaller and you're just kind of growing that for the flowers. And you could even sort of let it grow a little bit more rampant until it flowers and then sort of trim it back. Anyway, and it's drought tolerant. So it's kind of a cool choice for us. And it's pretty unusual. All right, here's my little thing lately. Pawpaws. Now the red fruit growers tried to grow pawpaws about 20 years ago. And the president lived over on Altadena Drive, or just below Altadena Drive, over near UAN. And he had a little tree and they were growing these grafted varieties. And I don't even know if that guy still has his tree. I had like 4 and they all died and they were grafted varieties. And then I was up in if anybody knows about pawpaw, now this is not papaya. I think Australia, common name. So you want to go, which I don't in this presentation, you want to go with the Latin because that's the most accurate thing. But the common name pawpaw, and there's even like an old American folk song about picking up pawpaws. It's our only native North American exotic kind of big fruit. It's distantly related to Cherimoya, and I'd never had one until 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Maybe it's, anyway, we were taking a trip to see a bunch of people in Ohio. It's like the Ohio River Valley, all the way up to like Michigan and upstate New York, but then down to, I think they even get to Florida. And they grow very riparian. They like, kind of wet, unlike mangoes, right? They like a lot of moisture. And anyway, not to get too further into this, but I was visiting my daughter in upstate New York, and I went to a farmer's market right in October, and I asked them, do they have pawpaws? And a lot of them didn't know what I was talking about. And then someone said, oh, last week we had them, but there's a guy who's an expert, and he brings me pawpaws. This is a guy who was selling mushrooms. He was selling kind of weird herbs from, like he was what do you call it? Like foraging in the deciduous, North woods. And he knew about him. And he told me about this other guy, and he gave me the guy's number. And I called up this guy, and Richard Cook, and I met with him, and he had him in his front yard, and he gave me all this great advice. And I think we were doing it wrong. I think what he said is ridiculous to grow grafted varieties. They sucker like bamboo or something. And so you want to get seedlings, and they've got to, in this case, you need pollinators. You need different trees that are different genetically to pollinate. And he had all this lore, like, it's like the flowers smell funky, and so carrion flies actually pollinate the flowers. And he said there's an old adage that you hang a dead cat in your grove of pawpaws, and that way you get good pollination. But anyway, I got a bunch of fruit from him, and we were in a car. We were taking this trip, and I like it. It's not as good as Cherimoya. It's a little, I don't know if any of you are from there. Maybe we can share about that later, but it's kind of a juicy fruit gum and a real pudding sort of flavor. And they're really aromatic. So they were in the back of the car. And by the time, like a week later, man, some of the people's family members were like, get those out of here. But some of them really liked them, which is the case with a lot of fruit. If you're gonna try to turn someone on to, I think the rare fruit growers taught me this. You really want to if someone's never tried a weird new fruit, you got to try to give them a good one, that it's not too mysterious looking. And so anyway, I saved all the seeds from these pawpaws I got from Richard Cook, and then I had to stratify them with some things you need to put the seeds in cold, like it went through winter, because this tree it goes dormant. It's a deciduous tree, actually, even though Cherimoya and most of those other relatives of Cherimoya are very tropical. And so, anyway, at the bottom of my property on the right there, I have this little pawpaw patch. I have like 6 pawpaw trees. I'm very excited. And they're very slow growing. This guy, Richard Cook, was very pessimistic about my chances, but it was one of those things, this kind of thing, like a real fruit geek thing to do. We'll see how it works out. They like water. So I have at the bottom of my property where it's coldest, because you think about things like that, like microclimates on your property. And at the bottom of my property, it's a slope in Altadena. And so it's colder down there at the bottom. And so that's from last summer, and I'm going to baby them, and we'll see how they do. But check in with me, in a couple of years. That's enough on pawpaws. Okay, Cherimoya just can't be beat. A lot of the rare fruit growers think it's the best fruit there is, I have to admit. And because of the pandemic, I was able to pollinate more diligently than I ever have before, and I'm just loaded. The photo on the left is one of my trees. I have a few trees. I think I have 4 trees. It's a beautiful tree. That the photo on the right doesn't really do it justice. That looks a little bushy. The big leaf and it's very kind of delicate in the landscape. They do like water, and you got to really, for good fruit, and I know this from my own experience, you really need to hand pollinate. But then you have maybe one of the most delicious fruits. If nobody's ever tried it, you can start to get them in the grocery stores now. Like, you can get them at a pretty decent price down at San Gabriel Valley at the big Asian supermarkets, and it's just like, it's like a pina colada pudding kind of thing. It's really, and they got a bunch of black seeds that are really annoying, but the seeds are very viable. Cherimoya seeds, you don't have to stratify them. They're very high percentage of germination. Here's my tree, white sapote. That's my tree on the right behind the mangoes. This is so delicious, and a lot of people don't think it's as delicious as Cherimoya. I think it's really close. It's very puddingy. They bruise. If no one's ever tried this fruit, it's fantastic. And if you read the Sunset Western, they say it's almost like a nuisance tree because it's so prolific. It'll put out tons of fruit, and then they all fall, and they're kind of a mess because they can't market them very well because they bruise. You can buy them at Gelson's and stuff, but they're usually not very good because they pick them so green. But if you have your own tree, and then once you know about it, you start seeing trees in the neighborhood. Like, I know where some other white sapotes are, and that tree, mine, it was probably planted 75 years ago. So Michelle's here. Maybe she could speak about the West India Gardens, which was a nursery when we get to that. And her house is on that property, and there were a few nurseries, and West India Gardens was one of them, and they promoted they were experimenting with growing a lot of fruit trees like 100 years ago, and there was a few of them in the Southland, and they brought us like loquats and white sapote and cherimoyas, and they tried to do dates, but found out it didn't work, and so they moved, more. They were successful at Palm Springs and all the different kinds of avocado before sort of Haas took over. But anyway, I love white sapote. Okay. Black sapote. Oh yeah, so that was in my pitch. There's all these sapote. I think sapote is like the Aztec word for sweet fruit, and it's a common name, and they're not necessarily related at all. So if something's a black sapote, someone's a white sapote, they're totally botanically different. Black sapote is a tropical persimmon, and it's very dark. It's like that brown to black, and they're sweet and puddingy like a good Hachia persimmon. And I have a tree and they're very sensitive. They're one of the more sensitive ones, very tropical. So my tree, after many years, is finally gaining some height, and I'm finally getting a decent crop of fruit. And last summer, it was July. Because of climate change, who knows when our seasons are? I don't know if that was normal. We'll see. But it's fantastic. I like it. And it's called chocolate pudding fruit. To be distinguished from chocolate persimmon, which is one of the many delicious persimmon varieties, deciduous varieties. Okay, all right. Chico Sapote, I have not eaten yet, but I have it. I've killed one tree, I think, in my, that's not my cat, I got that off the internet. I'm just noticing him. It's a beautiful little tree, and they say it's like a pear soaked in brown sugar. And when people describe the flavor, they get a real far away look in their eyes. It sounds like it's fantastic. And so I have a tree. I killed one. We had that bad cold about 10 years ago. I remember the president of our chapter of the Rare Fruit Growers quit because everything died. He lived down near the Arbor, down near the Huntington. He lived like in some valley down in Pasadena. And so because the cold went down, and this was like 10 years, I forget the exact year, 2013, I don't know when it was, but we got cold, Usually we don't get that cold. We get like, we dip into the 30s, maybe the upper 20s for a couple of nights. And you can do things with your real tropical stuff, like you can actually put sheets over them, or your Christmas lights. Often your Christmas lights right after Christmas, you get them around your papayas or whatever, and you get ready if you know cold weather's coming, which is going to get a little colder the next week or so. I I'm paying attention. It looks like upper 30s is the worst it's going to get. That's okay. Anyway, that's Chico Sapote. This is Mamey Sapote, which is more common. You may know it if you've traveled to the Caribbean. It's like a very sweet potato, and they put it in smoothies a lot in Mexico, and it's called Mamey or Mamey Sapote. And I actually had a great one in Hawaii, and I smuggled the seed out, and my tree is almost as big. It's bigger than this guy, and so that was in 2012. Hopefully. One of the issues with growing seedlings from seeds is, unlike with grafting, they've got to go through the whole period of what they call juvenilia or something. It's like they've got to grow up to get to reproducing age. And whereas with grafting, you're cloning, and there's different kinds of cloning, like cuttings and different things. And that you're getting the part of the tree that was already mature. So you should get it to fruit faster. But with seedlings, you have to be more patient. So we'll see with this Mamey Sapote. Okay, edible cactus is really great, and it's very drought tolerant. The apple cactus on the right, it's that columnar cactus, Cereus peruvianus. There's a couple other species. And what's funny is the Cereus peruvianus often wins the taste tests with dragon fruit, which is the really exciting crop that a lot of the rare fruit growers are really into. And then, of course, prickly pear, where you can eat the young pads too, get rid of the thorns. Very nutritious. They found that the indigenous peoples, their incidence of diabetes was low. There's probably something that sort of manages your insulin levels with this, maybe with a lot of the cactus fruit. I don't even know, but I remember reading it about a puncha. And there's seeds in the tuna, in the fruit. It's kind of like it's nice. It's watery. It's kind of like a watermelon flavor. I like it. And then dragon fruit, and that's like it's several different species. It's a tropical climbing cactus vine, and it's cactus, so it's very drought tolerant. And and they're breeding new ones all the time. They're the amateurs and the professionals, and they're great colors. There's like the white one. That's the one we used to have, mostly just that species, and then they crossed it with these other species. So there's these pink and these all these cool colors. Papaya. There are three kinds of papaya. Mexican, which is, I understand, it's a little more cold hardy than Hawaiian. It's those bigger ones you get in the grocery store. And then there's Hawaiian. And then there's something called babaco, which is a cross with the regular, I don't know if it's a Mexican and what they call a mountain papaya. And babaco does really well here. It's a smaller tree. I think it doesn't grow from seedling. You have to get a clone. And it's very distinctive flavor. So, but babaco's less cold hardy. Hawaiian's very it's more cold hardy. Hawaiian's very cold sensitive. So if you're going to grow Hawaiian, you need to have it in a place you can cover or something. Probably one of the most cold sensitive plants you can grow. So some of it's a little tricky. And if we have climate change, and very warm winters, you may get years of really good papayas. And then because part of the climate change is the volatility of the weather, you may have something just kill it. Oftentimes what happens if we get a cold snap and the plant's healthy, then if you protect it, the worst that happens is it kind of burns it freezes the outer leaves, and maybe it sets it back a little bit. Like those mangoes of mine were severely set back at that freeze in 2013 or whenever that was. But the trees survived. And sometimes if the tree's not doing well or it's really young, maybe it's got some other problem, you could lose it. Like I lost a Chico Sapote in that freeze, I think, because it was already kind of not doing so good. Okay, there's all these different Myrtaceae. I use the Latin genus. This is the Guava family. And there's just tons of fruit in this family, including the guavas that we know as like tropical guava and pineapple guava. Anyway, Brazilian jaboticaba is this great tree. That's not mine. I think the one on the cover is mine. It's really interesting. It flowers and fruits on the wood of on the branches and trunk of the plant. So it's very weird looking. And they're like these big sort of leathery black Concord grapes. They're really good. You probably don't want to eat the skin. They sort of pop like eyeballs or something, and they're really good. And then Java Plum, one of my fruit tree aficionados was this guy, Jorge Ochoa, who is a big passion fruit expert. And he runs the horticulture department at Long Beach City College. And he took me on a tour through Long Beach 10 years ago. There's a lot of Asian cultures down there, neighborhoods, and we found all this stuff. And one of his students brought him this great Java Plum. And so I planted some of the seeds, and I've got a big tree in my yard now that's going to be, it's really good. It's sort of a tart plum, but it is a guava. They call it Java Plum, but it's not a plum at all, you know. And then there's a lot more here. There's a bunch of them. I think Ann and I were trying to figure out, I think that photo in the center on the upper part is a pineapple guava, but often they're a little more dusty looking than that. That's a really good one. Tropical guava on the right. Lemon strawberry guava down center in the middle. I think that's red strawberry guava to the right. One of those weird ones in the rare fruit growers on the upper right, Grumachama or one of those, and they have other names. And then the Surinam Cherry, which they used as a logo for the rare fruit growers, is down in the lower left. I don't have all of these. I have a lot of guavas. I do have some Surinam cherries, but sort of neglected. It hasn't fruited for me. Maybe that one on the upper right is what they call cherry of the Rio Grande. And I do have that. And I think I've had it all the time I've been here, and I think it's only set fruit like twice. Dessert bananas, fantastic. They are very tropical, but they do very well here, you know. To get fruit, you need to water them a lot and fertilize them a lot. And then you get really good fruit. And it looks like that bunch on the right, and you leave them on the tree. It's not actually a tree. It's its own thing. It's a stem. It's called a pseudo stem, and it's the wrapped leaves. And there's a resource on your resource page, We Be Bananas, more information than you'd ever need if you want to grow bananas. And they do really well here. But like I say, to get them to fruit, you need water and fertilizer, you know. And we have a lot of places in Altadena have this fast drainage. So, you know, our water bills are high, you know. So a lot of people set up their bananas like for a gray water situation, like below the house or whatever. Pakistan mulberry, this is my tree on the right. This tree is phenomenal. It's a deciduous tree. It's a mulberry. And what's unusual about it is it grows, well, the size is unusual. They're these big, long, they look like big caterpillars or something. That's an accurate size on that normal size hand. It's probably my hand. And they're ripe also in May when there's not a lot else going on. They're like late April to early June. And the tree that you see on the right is huge. And I'm certified to sell my fruit. And, you know, that stuff can get like $16 to the pound. And it's really best just for fresh eating. But they're so exotic and delicious. I don't know if you've ever tried a mulberry. They're delicious. All mulberries are delicious. There's kind of an acid balance to them. This is not. It's just this silky sweet kind of flavor. And they're really wonderful. They stain. And so it's a great fruit, but that tree just dominates our life in the month of May. Jujube is it's a deciduous Chinese from Asia, and it's very drought tolerant, and they're really good. I mean, I sort of thought they were a little boring at first, but I've grown to really appreciate them. They're great dried. They're sort of like caramel corn if you dry them, and you get a ton of fruit on a tree. The tree silhouette is very beautiful. It's sort of like stepped. Anne was saying she heard that they were used as shade trees. Maybe they are, but my experience is they're smaller trees in the landscape, very prolific, and they're kind of like a crunchy apple, little tiny crunchy apple. They're like the size of a date, but they're not that sweet, but they're sweet and they're really good. Australian finger lime, that's my tree on the upper left in the photo of the canopy. don't know if you've had this, but it's an Australian bush fruit. It's it's a citrus. That's when I know I've been talking too long. I start to get hoarse. It's a citrus from Australia. I don't understand that. And I'm sure it was just a scrubby, what they call a bush fruit. And then some enterprising chef or entrepreneur got a hold of it about 15 years ago. And I remember I bought my tree from the Rare Fruit Grower Fruit Festival in Fullerton that the Orange County chapter puts on. And it was huge. And I got there early, so I got the biggest one they had. And so my tree in the front, my front yard in Altadena, is probably one of the biggest finger limes there is. And what it is you cut them in half, and then you sort of, with your finger, push down, and it squeezes out these little tiny citrus fruit sacs. They're a little bit oilier than regular citrus. Like, you know how there's an oil sometimes on the peel of a grapefruit or something? Kind of like that. It's like a sour lime, but they're fantastic as a garnish. Chefs are using them with sushi and stuff like that, garnish with fish. My wife puts them in tuna fish salad. It's great. She puts them in salad dressings. It's great. It's like this little pop of a lime flavor. And so they're kind of wonderful. That's 8-ball pomegranate. You all know pomegranate. We don't have to get into that. It's a distinctive, small, very black, dark pomegranate. I thought was interesting. Pomegranates are great, you know, but they're pretty common, you know, and they're very easy to take care of. They're drought tolerant. They're kind of thorny. Those small branches, they are not real thorns, but they can stick you. So, you know, pomegranates are a good choice here. Very nutritious. That's my quince espalier on the right, on the front of my property. It probably hasn't had its espalier pruning when I took that photo. Yeah, the photo's from the summer. Again, quince is really difficult because of the codling moth, and I kind of let it go for a year, and now I'm trying to catch up. And I swear, if I can't get on top of it with the traps and everything, I may yank it, because I get all these beautiful quince. It's really fun to cook with. You can make really cool stuff with quince. The original word marmalade is a Portuguese word for the jam they made from quince. And they make that like Turkish delight and different kind of candies from quince. And you got to cook it. It's like an apple. It's great with applesauce. If you throw one in a big vat of applesauce, it's tart. And when it cooks, it becomes pink. It's really a wonderful thing to cook with. But like I say, it was just disgusting. It's this caterpillar has wormed through all the fruits, and I don't know what you do with them. And so I just basically composted the whole crop this year. So I don't mean to be a bummer, but you know, you got to be careful. You got to really stay on top of the codling moth with pears and quince especially. Here's a fruit tree I got rid of, but it was really interesting. It was just it was at the end of the summer, and I had so much of it, I didn't know what to do with. I might have, if I'd been inventive, figured out a way to preserve it, because I do jams and stuff like that, and syrups and stuff like that. Great syrup with the Pakistan mulberry and lavender. It's like this fantastic, very unusual flavor. It's almost like a chocolate layered flavor with mulberry and lavender, the Pakistan mulberry and lavender syrup. Maybe I could have done something with this. It's a Chinese fruit, and you need a male and female, and they do have thorns, and it's like a weird, the texture is like a soft, you know, like a berry, kind of mulberry, but sort of soft. And then the flavor's like watermelon. That's the closest thing I could come. We had it at a buddy of mine. We tried it at a Rare Fruit Growers meeting. Somebody had it like 18 years ago, and I just went, oh, I got to get one of those. So I got one, and then it suckers, you know, it grows everywhere, and took me a while to get rid of it, but it's a pretty cool fruit. I mean, if you're into it, I kind of recommend it. Okay, that's it. There's my resources, which I think Anne's going to provide. And now we should just go to questions, I guess, right? What are we doing? 7:30? Yeah, got through that in about a half hour or so. Good. So does anybody want to?
Thank you, Steve. Steve, while people, some latecomers may not have heard me say, if you have a question, please type it into the chat box, and then we'll just take the questions one at a time. And while people are doing that, typing in their questions, I'd like to ask one to start things off. Every year it seems our is hotter than the previous year. I heard last night that 2020 tied the hottest year on record. So that was the first year in a while that wasn't hotter than the previous year. But that makes me wonder whether it doesn't pay to grow stone fruits anymore because we have less chill in the winter. And so, I mean, that may be a reason for us to go more towards subtropical or even tropical fruits. What do you say about that?
Well, there's some really delicious low chill stone fruits. There's a guy in Riverside that's proven that a lot of apples that we used to, if anybody doesn't know about chill, deciduous fruit trees need a certain amount of chill during the winter to produce right. Otherwise, they don't flower and fruit correctly. And so a lot of these deciduous trees, which are from mostly super cold places in Central Asia or, Eurasia originally, that they need that, peaches need whatever 1,000 hours of chill hours. And I don't want to have to get into that, but it is not a precise science. But here in Southern California, we're really more like well under 500. Here inland near the mountains, we can be up over 500. I mean, it was pretty cold this year so far. Then it got warm last week, and we're going into some more cold weather. But they say that a lot of the influence may be more about a good cold snap in the fall. But regardless, there's all these delicious varieties that are very low chill. So you got to make sure to start with, you're picking your varieties from those choices. Eva's Pride Peach is fantastic. Desert Delight Nectarine is fantastic. Gold Kissed Apricot is fantastic. They're all very low chill. And this is stone fruit. Now, apples are not stone fruit, they're what they call pome fruit, right? Which are these old-fashioned names that about what the seed looks like. But apples, there's a guy in Riverside who's kind of done all this work to show that what we thought were high chill apples actually acclimate. And so there's a big project down in Irvine where there's all these heirloom high chill apples that are all performing really well right at the beach. There may be other issues of pollination. A lot of times with the apples, they need a certain kind of politician. Ooh, this we just had an inauguration. Certain kind of pollination. And anyway, so apples you don't maybe have to worry about with this in this regard. But because of that severe summers, there is other issues like climate change, like if the sun's baking down on it, sometimes you got to shade your apples or shade your peaches or nectarines, because it's just so brutal with what we're dealing with. And by shade, I mean, maybe just play it by ear and get a little piece of shade cloth over them or something like that. Some people use this kaolin clay in a Hudson sprayer. It's kind of involved. And that's supposed to be good for certain pests. And sometimes they use it for sun scald. Because that's what happened to my apples is like when it's in full Altadena sun, some of this stuff is sensitive in the summer. But as far as chill goes, just try to err on the low chill side. That's all you need to know about that. I think the Dave Wilson website is a great resource. They don't have that listed there because it's deciduous fruit trees, but they get into understanding for like the home grower amateur what you need to know about chill hours. Does that answer your question, Ann?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Let's go to a question from Paul. Can we grow good Cherimoya and white Sapote from seeds, or should we graft?
Good question. Well, white Sapote, like I said, Cherimoya, yes. It's a little tree, and my experience with it is it grows pretty fast and hits maturity, so it can flower and bear fruit faster. White Sapote, I think, takes longer. So I think you're better off with a grafted white Sapote, in my opinion. I love my tree, which might have been a seedling. My friend Tom Spellman thinks it's not. He used to work for the Laverne Nursery, and he thinks he knows what the variety is, but who knows? You'd have to, I named it after my wife, Lily, and my white sapote, because I thought, well, I can, it's a seedling. And if anybody wanted to sue me, they'd have to like get it, genetically tested, and who's going to do that? But anyway, I would, if you want fruit fast, I think you got to go with the clone, and that's grafted or one of the other ways, not cuttings. They don't work with most fruit trees except fig, pomegranate, mulberry. There's one other one. I can't think of what it is. They kind of work from cuttings where you just stick the stick in the ground and you can get a new tree that way. But mostly you got to clone it with grafting or air layering, which is where they score a branch in the tree and put some wet moss and then they're promoting that little wound on the branch to root. That roots into that moss, and after a while you can cut it off and you've got roots to your new little clone, and you plant that. And they do that with some of the tropical stuff like key apple. They do that with, because key apple, see, you'd plant the fruit seed and you wouldn't know for a long time whether you get male flowers or female flowers, So some of the stuff you want to clone. That's my answer to that. I think Cherimoya, you could get away with it. A lot of people have. A lot of the rare fruit growers are very proud of their Cherimoya fruit that they grew from seed. I know that for a fact, but I think it would take a little while. I think it would take like 10 years or so. Okay. Well, I wanted to say this about my Jabota Caba. That was a seedling I got from a guy when I was brand new going to, all the nurseries are down in San Diego County, the good nurseries. There's some up here, but most of the good ones are down there. And I bought this little Jabota Caba because I had heard about it and thought it was cool. And the other nurserymen who saw the little baby Jabota Caba from the seedling in the back of my truck said, man, that thing takes forever. It's going to be 15 years before you get fruit. Well, about 11 years later, I trained it horizontally. This is a tip. And that year it flowered and fruit. So I was very proud of that. And the deal is fruit trees seem to produce more reproductive flowers and flowers for fruit the more horizontal they are. If you let a tree grow straight up, it thinks its business is to just grow and to go for the sky. But if it goes horizontal, I guess there's something in it with the hormones and stuff, the auxins and it sort of goes, oh, okay, I guess we can set flowers and set fruit now.
That's interesting. Steve, how long from seed to get papaya fruit here?
Not long. Papaya is fast. Papaya, like banana, is not really a tree. It's I think you can, if you especially if you're keeping it warm. Here's the thing with unusual, more tropical fruit in Altadena. The thing that's hard for us certainly freezes, but also that June gloom is not helpful with a lot of our tropical stuff. And so things tend to just not really get going till the soil is like 50 degrees. So you know how it goes. We get the June gloom, like, and it's not necessarily in June, but it's sort of like this gloomy, cold weather, wet, through the spring. And that sort of doesn't help our tropicals, which are used to a longer, season. I mean, in tropics, it's just like, it's always warm and then it's rainy, right? And so a lot of your tropical stuff like mangoes, and a lot of them will set fruit and you're actually trying to time it so that the fruit will be ready in the late fall. I mean, that's true of mangoes. They're, and a lot of times that flower, it's a very cool flower on a mango tree, but a lot of times the moldy diseases from our June gloom will kind of hammer it, anthracnose and stuff like that, mildewy stuff. So was that the question?
Yes, thanks. Sharon Sand asked did you mention passion fruit or do you grow it?
Passion fruit's great. Why don't I have my passion fruit? I have a bunch of passion fruit. I love passion fruit. I don't know why I didn't put it on the presentation. It's great. It's now as I get older, it's like you want stuff that's easier to deal with. So passion fruit is evergreen. You got to train it. It's great on a border if you've got an ugly border. And, the more you train it, the better. I don't know how long it lives. Jorge Ochoa would know how long, if you can find him. Like the kind we grow, which is the big purple ones. There's kinds in tropical areas that are really sweet. Our purple one, edgeless, like Frederick and these ones, they're kind of sour, but they're very delicious. If anybody doesn't, it's that Hawaiian punch flavor. And it's great cut with some of the like guava, because it's sort of, the cloying flavor of guava cut with passion fruit is really delicious. And, so anyway, you plant a vine and then you nurse it and it grows up, in like the second year, you get third year, maybe you get just tons of fruit, and you don't even have to pick it. It falls on the ground. And so it's a great fruit. I don't know if anybody's had rat problems. I've had a lot of rat problems this year. I seem to have gotten rid of them with traps and bait, like anticoagulant bait. But the rats, I thought it was just me and all the stuff I'm growing here, but apparently it's a problem all over LA, rats this year. Anyway, but I don't know. I think they stayed away from my passion fruit pretty much.
Steve, have you grown fuzzy kiwi? And what about vining kiwi, which was
they all vine. Yeah, so kiwi, I have kiwi as well, but it's a little neglected. I grew that right away. I have a little back house, and I put a trellis to sort of give people privacy who lived in the back house. And I planted, like, early on, I learned from one of the rare fruit growers, a guy named Roger Meyer, a way you can grow kiwi in the home garden. So it doesn't have to be like grapes on those long lines. And but you need a male and a female. But I think the ratio is something like, when they plant it commercially, like 7 females to 1 male or something. That's pretty good odds, right, guys? That's a joke. So there's these male varieties that pollinate the female varieties, and you got to get a low chill, because the kiwis you buy like at the store are all from Chico, which is higher chill. So you need a low chill because it's deciduous, it loses its leaves. And I learned from this guy from the rare fruit growers who's gone now, named Roger Meyer, and he had this way of training it just over one post. And if you email me, I can send you the. I wrote it down. I went and took his class and wrote down how to grow kiwi. And mine is actually it's a nice planting. I have, I think, like 3 or 4 different female varieties and 2 male varieties. If I had time, I'd probably put a few more in. But our back house is now, my wife's uncle is living there, and so he's sort of taken it over. So my kiwis, my kiwi mojo is not up to snuff right now.
Okay. Someone, BJ Ledyard asked, do you have Japanese raisin?
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I know about that. Yeah, raisin fruit tree, right? I've had it. I don't grow it. I do have something called ice cream bean, which is similar. I don't even know what the tree is, but as I understand it, it was some part of the flower dries up and is sweet, and it's like raisins. Is that right? Can they answer that? Have they tried it? Have they grown it?
Yeah. I grow it and I use it instead of brown sugar.
Yeah. You want to speak on it? You want to tell us about
it? Flaxseed. And you use it instead of brown sugar. It's amazing. And I can't find any recipes, but I've been using it in recipes.
Yeah, I bet you can. I don't worry about recipe. I mean, I figured out how to process white sapote, which is very annoying because it has these different size seeds.
Yeah.
And I do really amazing jams and stuff with this one jam I do with a chili white sapote jam is one of the jams I'm proudest of, actually. And but I had to figure out how to do it, it was it's very labor intensive, some of this stuff. There's another thing called ice cream bean tree, which is a bean legume tree plant, and it's the husk of the pods. The inside is like this cotton candy kind of stuff, and it's very sweet. And it's sort of like that raisin. When I had I've only think I've had the raisin thing once, maybe at that guy Roger Meyer's house down in Orange County. But yeah, I remember it was very sweet. That's cool that you're using it that way. There's so many things, and the resource at the bottom is this old-fashioned book that I think that's the online copy of it, and it'll blow your mind because it's just huge volume, old book, and you know, it even has like the scientific name of the, like all those Myrtaceae fruits, they show up in all these different countries and they all have different names. So it's very hard to keep track of. And what's great about that book, you know, a lot of the rare fruit growers were these old military guys from like World War II who were stationed in the Philippines or something. So they want to try to grow the fruit they had when they were young, you know, in Thailand or something. So anyway, it's great to hear about the raisin tree, you know. Another resource is even north, like from Russia, or there's two nurseries in the Rare Fruit Grower nursery page, One Green World in Eugene, Oregon, and or Portland, and Rain Tree Nursery in Southern Oregon. And they have all kinds of stuff where you get into, and maybe with climate change, we would have worse luck with this stuff, but like little berries that grow in Canada or northern Mongolia and stuff like that, you know, so that's where kiwis come from, right? So anyway, there's just so much weird fruit. I mean, you know, there's just tons of it. Some of them are interesting talks at the Festival of Fruit that the Rare Fruit Growers have, was they get these like ethnobotanists to do a PowerPoint of stuff they found in the highlands of Cambodia and stuff, and you just wouldn't believe it. There's just so much stuff out there.
So Michelle, Zach asked, has there been any progress in creating a seedless Cherimoya? And how do you
I've never
pollinate
heard of that.
Cherimoyas?
That would be hard, man. You mean, like, I know they're such a pain. I'm starting to eat my cherimoyas now that I pollinated in July, and I gotta say, it's pretty annoying. But I've never heard of that. Have you heard of that, Michelle?
Yeah, I once gave a talk at the Cherimoya Society about Pompano, who was
Yeah,
on
the guy who owned the guy who ran West India.
He was a plant explorer, and
Yeah.
in the Cherimoya Society, they were talking about people working, and this was about 10 years ago, toward, you know, trying to grow a seedless one, because then they thought they could really crack the commercial market.
Oh my God, that would be so fantastic.
So that was 10 years ago. I thought you might know if
No, I don't know. I mean, I just been on my own kind of with it. I haven't had time to go to keep up with it. I went to a Cherimoya meeting, like the annual Cherimoya conference meeting, which was very niche. You know, the guy's family, he's a big Cherimoya grower in Ventura now, but I think his family owned or lived in the carriage house.
Right, that's the
below the library, right?
the Crab family, CRABB. Yeah, they have. It seems like they're real gentleman farmers. Just it's a passion, because I'm sure it's not. They don't make money from it, but they were very devoted to the Cherimoya, and they had a subgroup of the Cherimoya Society as a subgroup of the Subtropical Fruit Society, or the Tropical Fruit Society. And it was,
but they're now located like in Cherimoya country, like
right. Their farm is
Ventura or whatever.
The house is the carriage house just south of the library.
Yeah, and the guy was really helpful to me, because here's what I'm doing with my Cherimoyas, and I don't know if he thought it made sense. I put a very light shade cloth over them in the height of the summer till like October. I don't know if I need to or not, but it seems like at least the exposed branches will get sunburned. That's a big deal. You know, you don't want, it's the severity, especially with our severe summers, those heat spells, you know. Do you remember the thing that happened? It was 3 summers ago. It was in early July. It was a heat spell. It just wiped out all these avocados. I had brand new avocados. I didn't lose any, but I had just taken the shade cloth off when I had planted them. And then we got hit in early July, and they said it was going to spike at the beginning of the heat spell. Usually one of our heat spells that kind of peaks, you know, and this they said like, and it was early in July, and it said, yeah, and it was like 117 degrees here. I mean, it was horrible, and it totally wiped out avocados. People were calling me about their avocado damage, you know. Anyway. But
So,
seedless cherimoya, that's the holy grail right there, man. That would be great.
yeah. Steve, a couple people say they've had trouble growing kiwis. Do you have any suggestions?
I think they just take a lot of work. I think you got to prune them really well. What I found out from Roger Meyer is you really prune them. And then it's very good. One of the tips is you don't do your severe pruning on the male till after flowering. But in the dormant time, like now, you prune them back. Now I don't know how to grow them the traditional way is on the lines. I just learned this way from Roger Meyer, where you're kind of growing up a column like a 4x4 post, and then you could have two from the same plant kind of intertwine and grow up that, and then each cascade over the opposite side like an umbrella. And I called it I used to live in New York City, and after a storm, there'd be all these broken umbrellas in the street, and they're all mangled. And it's sort of like the broken umbrella form, but you thin them way down, like you really hard pruning, like when you really hit a peach, or a pomegranate, and or a fig, you really hit them hard. And then out of that, because I think the fruit's on new wood, but that's all. Now we're getting into a whole different topic about because it gets complicated. So I would say the short answer is it's more demanding in terms of your time. Another vine that's evergreen and will keep that ugly border covered the whole time and doesn't demand as much time as passion fruit like we were talking about.
Here's another question, Steve. Do you know about the fruit calamansi, fruit from the Philippines? Calamansi.
No, but if you Google it, do you got the right spelling of it?
We're not sure.
Yeah, no, I don't. To answer your question, I mean, there's just so much stuff, especially when you get in the tropical places like the Philippines or Thailand and stuff. It gets vast. And a lot of that stuff's difficult to grow, by the way, like mangosteen, which people say is even better than cherimoya. And you can buy them that been frozen down in the Asian supermarkets, but you don't know what. I mean, I think if you got to eat it at the fruit market in Thailand, really, to know. And they say it's just the best fruit ever, but we can't grow that here. I mean, you'd have to have a greenhouse to grow it here.
Have you ever tried to grow pineapple?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. You need a greenhouse. You could grow it, and it's like when you're a kid growing a carrot. You could just grow the top of the pineapple. Why not try? That's easy enough. But I think eventually you're going to need to have it in. I don't know. No, I have never tried it, so I'm just talking.
So can I just the calamansi? I'm the one who asked Steve. It's actually a citrus fruit, and it was in the Philippines when I lived there. So they're really tiny. They almost look like.
Yeah. It's like a.
Kumquat?
No.
Yeah, no, that you can buy that. That I know what you mean, but I didn't Yeah, it's
So I would think that would grow well here because
Calamandan.
Calamansi.
Maybe I'm mispronouncing it.
Calamansi.
Yeah, I forget what that is. It's a sour.
Very sour, made a wonderful drink, and they're a little bit like key limes. They're really tiny. And they were in the Philippines, but they were very much like a citrus fruit. So I just
You can buy those. You could just go to Four Winds Nursery. You could probably buy the tree.
Okay.
Christina says you can get calamansi soda at Trader Joe's.
Wow. There you go.
It's delicious. It's a wonderful fruit.
There's all those cool citrus, like yuzu is another one that.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law just sent me something of like a mandarin quat. There's all these like kumquat crosses they've done,
Another question, do fuerte avocados fruit every other year?
Now avocado fruiting is one of the big mysterious questions everybody is always asking. Their avocado produce really well. They live in the house. Their grandfather planted this avocado and now it stopped producing, and there's no really definitive answer. It could be something culturally happened. So a lot of times if you're not taking care of a fruit tree and exactly the way it wants, one of the first things it'll do is shut down its reproductive energy, right? It might even still look good in the landscape, but it's taxed a little because, you know, maybe your watering isn't as good as it should be, or you're not fertilizing anymore, one of those things. And so you won't know, you just won't get good. I think that my Cherimoyas, I planted my Cherimoyas when I was brand new, and often I didn't keep up with them and they didn't die. And this year I've got all these Cherimoyas from my 4 trees, which is great. But they, and maybe you could call it suffering, but at least they're less fertile, you know, they're less reproductive because they're challenged in some way. That's just some general advice. So fuerte is what they call a bee. Avocados have this weird pollination thing where there's like some of the varieties are A and some of the varieties are B. And so they recommend to plant 2 and an A and a B. And it's not male, female, it's a little different. And I won't even try to say what it is. It's like the flower is predominant, the tree fuerte, I'm just making this up, is predominantly female the afternoon of the first day, and then the flower becomes male. And the A's are vice versa, but not exactly. And so, so avocado should be self-fertile on its own, but you will get more abundant fruit production if you have an A and a B. And so fuerte is a great old variety, smooth skin. It's a B, I know for a fact. So if there's a Haas around, so if you don't get good pollination and you used to, it could be there was a Haas a couple of doors down that they cut down or something, because that's A. It could be some factor like that. And I have noticed that a lot of the avocados do seem to sort of alternate bear, you know. That's one of my last projects. I put in a bunch of different heirloom varieties of avocados. I have to fight the squirrels for them. You will have to fight the squirrels for them, and the rats, and the other critters. And that's the other whole thing, you know, those kind of pest management things. It's a big bummer.
That was one thing that's bothering me about my peach trees. I don't get any peach trees anymore because the squirrels or the rats, I don't know which, get all the peaches.
Yeah.
What do you do about pests? How do you protect
Well,
your
do
fruit?
different things, you know. I mean, the best thing, I guess, well, the old rare fruit growers laughed at me about, because I had a walnut tree that was here when I got here, and I never got the walnuts. And I did everything. I tried spraying them with chili pepper spray. They still would eat them and then drop them on the ground. They would chew them on, and then later they came back and ate them. I mean, I tried all kinds of stuff, but they just laughed at me and said, you just got to get a terrier dog, which if they can get in from someplace else, that's no help, you know. But if you do have that, if you're a pet person or a dog person, and they can't get in from jumping from someplace else, that would be the best solution, because terrier dogs would love to eat squirrels, you know. They would love the challenge, you know. But I don't know. Barriers, different things, you know, different methods to try to deter the squirrels.
I see. So, well, thank you, Steve. I think we've gotten all of our questions.
Oh, great. That's
yeah,
only 8 o'clock. Okay.
There are a lot of comments I didn't read in the chat. And so I would suggest everyone, please save the chat. Go to that little square at the lower right, because there are lots of suggestions. Christina has reported that she could buy some kinds of exotic fruit at Super King. And Yvonne Savio is offering 2 fig trees to people who want to pick them up at their foot of her driveway.
Wow.
Fig tree cuttings. So yeah, please save the chat and read through the chat when you have some time.
Great.
So yeah, thank you everyone for your comments, and
I'm going to stop my share so I can look at the chats.
Yeah, do you want to? Yeah, just click on the chat. Yeah, stop your share. I don't know if you have to, but yeah, click on the chat button.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information here, and I've put everyone. I've put up Steve's recommendations, California rare fruit growers, and the We Bananas website, and the book that he mentioned on exotic fruits. So yeah, do that. And there's just a lot of information there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think there were
this
a
is
couple
great.
people who
What
have
great.
grown. Yeah, a couple people have grown pineapples and report what they got. Well, I'll just read Yvonne Savio's thing on jujubes. Hers developed shoots from the roots that were thorny, 1.5 inches long, which she pruned off. And
That's a
one
big
common name
problem.
is
They
Chinese
sucker.
date. And they're called Chinese date because when they mature and get wrinkly, they're very sweet and texturally like a date. That's the jujube.
Yeah, I don't know if they're really like a
You
date.
wouldn't agree with that?
Well,
Yeah.
they're the shape of a date, but don't get your hopes up. You know, I mean, they're good. I like them a lot, but I don't think they're like a date really. But that's my opinion. You know, maybe they're like a date. Wow, there's a lot of ringers here. A lot of people who really know their fruit trees.
Yeah.
You know?
So, okay, I think we'll close now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. That was great. We learned so much about exotic fruits. And we're going to look at the rare fruit growers website and see what we can learn there. By the way, is that where we find out where we can buy these trees?
Oh, yeah. So sourcing these trees is, I think if you go down to northern San Diego, like Vista, Fallbrook, there's a great old nursery down there, kind of crazy, called Exotica. And if you're down there, it's great to just wander around. And the people are a trip too, the people that run it. But so that's what I recommend. But there's some that are even closer to us. Yeah, if you go to that website and look at their nursery affiliate list, you'll just see tons of stuff like that.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Sure. Okay. So we're all
Okay.
bailing out now?
Yes, I guess that's it.
Okay. All
Steve's
right.
play. You were going to put that up, Steve's play?
Yeah, that's at the top of the chat.
Top
That's
of
at
the
the very
chat.
top of the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to see the play.
Thank you.
5 o'clock. And I don't know if we said it's short, so don't come late. It's 20 minutes long.
And
Yeah,
could you
and it's free. It's free, but you got to register.
Okay.
and could you add it again to the bottom of the chat, because some people who came late may not see the top of it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for promoting.
I'll do that.
All right, everybody.
I'll keep it on until she's put that on.
Yeah, I got to make it go to everybody.
Top of the chat and I don't see it.
Okay, I've
Yeah.
added it to the bottom of the chat. Home Fires 2, written by Joe. Oh, I mistyped that. Joe Keys, starring Steve Hoffendahl and Lily Knight. Tomorrow at 5, and that's the website. Theater spelled R-E at the end. So yeah, 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, smartphone theater. That's
Yeah.
what you want to look up.
Right. So that'll be fun. That sounds like it'll be a lot of fun.
All
You
right.
said that Joe Keys wrote this play based on his parents'
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah, he's from a small Southwest Minnesota farm town, and he really is from a family of 10 kids, and he had very colorful childhood, and his parents are his dad was like the town doctor and coroner. Anyway, you'll see.
Okay, great.
All
Okay,
right.
good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful.